Hello, folks. Welcome to our presentation. My name is Uwe Melicher, and I'm the Vice President of the European Brand and Packaging Design Association, EPDA. But I'm not alone here. We have these three great fellows, but I will introduce them later. So why do I wear this orange jacket, you may ask? And I can tell you, that's an homage to all the garbage workers out there. So they take care of our rubbish, they take it out of our site, they put it somewhere, they ship it to Malaysia or something we don't want to know sometimes. And one of those guys told me, well, don't be naive, it all will end in the big fire. All the wonderful packages that are produced will end in the big fire. We all know that it is not true. There is recycling and composting. But if looking at the garbage or the waste hierarchy pyramid, there is a void. Well, you can leave away the package, you can reduce the weight and the volume. We can recycle and compost many of those packages. It's a big topic here. But we can also reuse them and make the lifespan of the package wider, so extend it. And that's what we're here for today. We want to talk about loop, a very interesting concept. These are the experts here, so I can take out my jacket now. I'm not the most important one, it's the guys here. But before that, I first like to introduce them. So it's three little presentations, 10 minutes each, and then we have time for Q&A. So who is with us? First of all, it's Clem Schmidt. She will introduce the loop concept because she is from the loop company, from TerraCycle. And she works there for about, from 2018 onwards, 2019 onwards, and is responsible for the more than 200 loop partners, the big brands in the world, the retail partners, and so on, the brand manufacturers as well. Yeah, and she drives the loop expansion strategy and the in-market execution. So we're really excited to hear what you can tell us. Then the second speaker will be James Pryor. He is an EPDA member, yes, and he is the co-founder and creative director of Touch Agency in London. James has over 20 years of experience in product and packaging development in the design industry, and he did jobs for, or the company did jobs for major global companies such as Unilever, Mondelez, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, just to name a few. Last but not least, I'm super happy to have Tommy here, Tommy Sido. He's the packaging R&D packaging lead at Nestle. And Tommy is responsible for sustainability in packaging. He's launching and managing innovations, utilizing design and generating everyday R&D insights. And he took a very close look into reusable packaging, bulk refill dispensing system designs, consumer and shopper insights, life cycle assessments, and analyzes all these very important things at such a big company as Nestle. And he was responsible for the, is it Häagen-Dazs or Häagen-Dazs?
Häagen-Dazs.
Häagen-Dazs. Okay. Häagen-Dazs launched in the US with Loop, so we have it here. They will all tell us more about it, which is also, available in at Carrefour in France and at Tesco in the UK. So before we go on, I briefly want to introduce our organization, the European Brand and Packaging Design Association, EPDA, 30 years old, with some interesting industry partners supporting us. Our members come from all across Europe. We have about 60 member agencies. We have physical meetings, 2 conferences a year. We're doing online events, all that kind of stuff to inspire, inform our members, and to give them a platform. Here you can see us in Bologna in May this year. This is our new president. I used to be president for 4 years. This is Silvia Vitale. She runs a Team Creative, big agency in France. Bologna you've already seen. And we recently launched our book. It's about our 10 beliefs. And in this book you can find, articles from 45 different authors, from Nestle, from our members, from whatever, from Mintel, from really interesting content suppliers. Yeah, and if you have time and want to come back to the wonderful city of Nuremberg, 21st of October is the perfect date. We'll have an event here at Kurz, and there will be the head of design from Puma, and then we will do a factory tour at Faber-Castell, so good reason to join us. Yeah, so that before I hand over, to give you a little bit of a broader scale, we don't only want to look at a loop, but well, in Germany we have a long history in reusable packaging. We all know that from the mineral water or beer business with the deposit system that started already in 1903 in Frankfurt with the first brewers doing that. And we had one standard glass bottle in the water business. Nowadays, we have about 150 different shapes, so you can imagine what the concept really causes for a lot of trouble, bringing the Flensburger pills back to Flensburg from Munich and the other way around, so a lot of transportation and logistics behind. One project I would like to briefly introduce is See Me. They've transformed this system into the cosmetic and detergent business, so you can buy these containers and you put them just into the deposit machine at your local supermarket. I just come back from London, where we had the Pentawards Award celebration. This was the big winner. That's the inflatable neck cushion. It's a reusable, package for this neck cushion, but it's also the pump, the air pump, to inflate the cushion. Very good example of reusable packaging. And this is another project. You can also see the booth here at FACHPACK. That's Wir Kiste Kreis. The idea is to introduce, install a system for reusable packaging in shipping boxes. So companies like Chibo, Otto, DM, whoever can join this platform, and people can bring back the box and get rewarded. So also, it's not only the packaging that counts, but it's a whole infrastructure and ecosystem around it, and that's what we want to talk about today. Last slide, that's from our own EPDA Student Award. That's a refillable Parmigiano cheese package, so you can use the package again to grade your cheese. Yeah, it's, as I said, it's not only the packaging, but for the packaging, we have to rethink, we have to redesign packaging, because it's not the single-use, very thin material anymore. It's more rigid, it's maybe a bit more heavy, because it needs to stand many turns to close the loop. So I hand over to Clem. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Uwe. So I have the task to introduce a little bit what our initiative is about, and then I'll pass it on to James and Tommy, who actually are the minds behind the design of the package itself. So what's Loop? First, we belong to a company that exists since 20 years. It's TerraCycle. It's a mission-driven company, and our mission is to eliminate the idea of waste. We're doing this by tackling what we believe the source of waste is, which is disposability or single use. And the way we do this is not by reinventing the wheel, especially here in Germany, but looking back at what used to be the norm, maybe in our parents', grandparents' generation, what is still the norm today. We talked about the beverage, or what is still the norm in many places globally on the B2B sector, which is reuse. In this model, the package becomes the ownership of the manufacturer, who is therefore motivated to make it as durable as possible, not just from an environmental standpoint, but from a financial standpoint. This contrast with today's world, and what we're taking is adapting this model to this new reality, which is what disposability offered to our modern organization. We are making it very convenient for everyone through the chain, and we are making it very affordable for everyone, including the consumers. The change that happened, though, which wasn't intended, is we moved the package from an asset to the manufacturer to a cost of goods that is actually sold to a consumer that has no intent to own it in the first place. and what's happening to a package or to a good that is transferred from one individual to the other without an intention to own it. It lost the value in the market, and that created what we are seeing today, which is the amount of waste that is created. You can see today consumers really throwing out the package, sometimes even within the store, not wanting to take it home. So our initiative is really to solve the unintended consequences of disposability while maintaining the value, maintaining this convenience and this affordability for the end users that we all are, but also for all actors in the chain. So we created a global platform for reuse. Our motto is buy anywhere, return anywhere. Think the beverage model here expanded to any aisle, frankly, of a supermarket, and expanded further where you can return in a quick-serve restaurant what you have purchased in a supermarket and vice versa, really mimicking what single-use brings us today, where you don't think where you purchased the product before throwing it away. We've, since 2019, that we've announced at the World Economic Forum in Davos, we've been working across the market, which today enable us to gather all those learnings across really the 3 continents, from Japan to Europe and as well as the US. How we start? We start from the packaging. And it is very important to look in terms of where the packaging is, how the packaging is thought through, and this is really where we're working with brand manufacturer, as Uwe was saying, to develop reusable packaging. We classify them in three different categories. The first one is existing packaging, so those packaged mostly glass products which are already reusable today, for the most part of it, but don't have a stream to be reused in the countries where we operate. So we don't work on the main body of the package. We work on adhesive, label, any type of coating if that exists, because those needs to be aligned with the washing process, but the work is basically already done. And you can see we do this across different categories. The second one is on the stock packaging, so that we're working with pack manufacturers that have off-the-shelf reusable options that we can propose to a lot of our partners that sometimes don't know where to start when they're developing reusable packaging. So if among you there are some people that are on their shelves, on their catalogs, some reusable packaging, please come and see me. We're always looking to enrich it and make sure we provide as many choices as possible to our partners. And again, that goes across food, non-food, laundry detergent, any type of dry food, wet food, as you've seen before, or even personal care. The third category I will show you, and then we will have a live demonstration, is what we call custom packaging. So that's a brand new development that a brand takes on, very often to answer unmet consumer needs and be able to elevate the consumer experience. What's always mind-changing is the moment you take the package as an asset and you are able to invest behind it, then suddenly a lot of opportunities arise in answering needs that with a single-use package that is going to be thrown away after one use is not thinkable. And you can see here what's very important on the loop side is we're material agnostic. So it's not an apologizing glass or plastic. Every form has a role on the platform as long as it's reusable. So plastic on the squeezability is really important. Glass for the neutrality on some places. Alloys, obviously, that can play a role, and across, again, different industries, whether it's food or it's non-food. The second part of the work that we're doing is actually getting those products into consumers' hands and getting them back. So we're working with retailers across the globe. So you can see some of the live images of how consumers across the country and the partners we're present are finding the product. We're always trying to create consistency. That's very important for the global partners that we're working with, that we can build on something that is common. So you can see between France, the US, or even Japan, how similar the execution is. The third step and last step, but not the least, I want to say, is actually how are we getting those products back, and how are we reimbursing consumers and finally clean those products. So we've put in place reverse logistics across all of the markets that we're working, from collection and deposit reimbursement. The modern world enables us to work with a smartphone and an application so that consumers are really independent and can really get their deposit in any place where they're going, and then they drop them back in a place. You can see here they are close up from the collection point, but you can see again the similarities of how you return it. And we've set up a cleaning operation to make sure that we're actually able to clean all of those products that we got. And we qualify this to the highest standard, working with many partners across personal care, home care, food, and even baby food, which arguably is one of the toughest from a QA standpoint. The learnings globally are very consistent. So after 3 years of being in market and getting consumers' feedback, what we're seeing is a proven proposition from a consumer standpoint, with consumers that are here, that are eager to purchase. You can see here, those are Carrefour initiative when they looked at their people, like how many returns, and you already have people that have done over 500 returns now to date. And it's an operationally proven facility. So we've done the loop with a lot of packaging, from the first filling to the cleaning, back to filling and back on the shelf. So it is technically proven, which is the aim of a pilot and a test. And now the next phase we're looking at is scaling up into more stores, more product. I want, before I hand over to James, that's going to talk to you a little bit more about the package and how they approach it into on the Häagen-Dazs container, like really center us back on the pack design is the key to the model. And I know it sounds trivial to think about it like this because it's a reusable pack, so obviously it has a big space, but that's really the solution beyond scale, which is another important factor that is really going to give the key to a market proposition. And it's actually no different than a normal innovation that brands are putting on the market every year. The first thing to think about is a durable pack will and needs to delight consumer in one way, shape, or form. And as I mentioned on durable packaging, you have the opportunity to address needs of consumers that were not thinking before. The second, it's very important, it's a revolution in the thinking of the package. Your package will age. So you need to design with this in mind, and you need to make it an advantage versus a disadvantage. How will it look like after 50 usage, and how can I turn it into an advantage for my brand equity? And the second is looking at your financials. I'm sure that's one of the questions I get most of the time together with the LCA. Not everything is a silver bullet, so you really need to look at what the targets and what you're trying to achieve. On the business model side, it really hangs into two main factors for the packaging to be able to be that asset, which is the right acquisition price over the usage versus the deposit. And I'll finish there, just to show a little bit the theory on the deposit. The deposit is actually a win, both for consumers and for manufacturers. If you think about buying durable package, which if you take dish care, approximately 40 to 50% of the US people are doing today, buying a durable containers to put on their counter. This price will always be higher than the deposit that you're finding. And as such, you have a win-win parallel between the consumer value perception and actually the brand business model. So that was it. I know it was very fast, but I'm also keen to hear what James has to say on the Häagen-Dazs packaging. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Clem. So it was a pleasure to speak with you all today. Thank you for taking the time to come and hear what we have to say. So I'm going to give you the design agency's impression of what it is to take Loop and take a brand like Häagen-Dazs, which is incredibly, well, precious and premium, and treat it with care through the Loop system. But before I do that, I just want to talk a little bit about Touch, the agency that I represent. So we're an innovation agency with a real specialism in structural packaging design and product delivery, and we work in pretty much every FMCG category that you can think of, and we work globally. And there's some examples of the kind of work that we do up on the screen there. And we creatively build on consumer and business insight so that we can ensure technically feasible, commercially viable, future-proofed and sustainable brand and business growth. That's enough about the agency. So let's talk about our work with Häagen-Dazs and with Loop. So if we boil the brief down very, very simply, this is what we have to do. We have to develop a 1-pint container for Häagen-Dazs that is fit for the Loop system, which, as Clem has described, is not so simple. There's lots of different stakeholders, lots of different steps that we need to consider. It needs to be reusable at least 100 times so that we can get maximum value out of the resources that we put into the system. We want something that's easy and hygienically cleaned, something that's widely recyclable at the end of its life, but most importantly, will give the best packaging experience that consumers have ever had from the Häagen-Dazs brand. No mean feat. Like all projects, though, we start with the consumer. We think about, well, what's their experience of single-use packaging? We've got an opportunity here with investment in reusable packaging to do something that just works better. So our research and Nestlé's research showed that actually single-use packaging isn't great for getting the product out. It has sharp edges, it's very flexible, it's just not convenient. We have an opportunity here to make that better. You also get really cold hands when you're holding a single-use piece of packaging of ice cream and Häagen-Dazs. So we have an opportunity to change that. And because this was for launch in the American market, one of the pieces of research that we uncovered was that 30% of Americans like to eat their ice cream in bed. And, well, no one wants cold hands in bed. So it's something that we thought we should fix. And the other piece is that the product melts from all sides, meaning that we don't get the same quality and product consistency from first bite to last. So we have an opportunity here to really protect the product and make sure that that great Häagen-Dazs quality is protected throughout the use. But we also need to look through the lenses of not just the consumer, but all of the other stakeholders that are going to be involved in making this product get to the consumer. So we think from a Häagen-Dazs and Nestlé perspective, well, will it fit on existing lines? Is it compatible with current capabilities, or will there be new capabilities needed in the future? When the consumer sees this online, will they say, wow, that's desirable, I'm absolutely going to part with my money, it's worth paying more for, it's worth the deposit? From a fulfillment perspective, is it going to be easy to handle? Is it going to be robust? Will it fit with other products in the Loop ecosystem? Of course, we want the consumer to have a wonderful experience, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. And it has to work through the transit chain and be robust and age gracefully, as Clem says. It must be easy to clean and consistently cleaned over its entire life cycle so that we can ensure that it's hygienic every time it returns back to Nestlé to be refilled again and again and again. We also have to think that when we started this project, Loop really didn't exist. We were one of the first products to be put on the Loop system, so we didn't really have an idea of, well, what were the best materials? What were the best ways of decorating? What were the different logistically efficient design process we could go to? How could we create insulation that was convenient for packing, remembering that we have to freeze this product, and also efficient throughout the logistics chain and for the consumer? So we did a lot of research into those different types of products and different types of materials. And we tested and prototyped lots of examples, as I'm sure, Tommy, you can remember. But before we put pen to paper and started designing this packaging, we needed to take a step back and really think about, well, what does Häagen-Dazs reusable look like? It's never really been done before. We've got an opportunity here to put a flag in the ground and say, no, this is what it should be, this is what it stands for, and this is how it could be represented. So we created a number of different creative platforms that explored the Häagen-Dazs brand, that explored category cues, and also desirable reuse cues, so we could make it really intuitive to the consumer how they should use this, and of course, treat it like a piece of returnable packaging and not single use. So from those creative platforms, we were then able to start getting creative. We created a wide range of concepts that explored all those different materials, different interactions. So on the left-hand side there, you can see something that takes a very familiar silhouette and halos it inside this translucent insulation. We had another concept, that silver concept that you see in the middle there, which was really about heroing the fact that this is a piece of packaging that has gone around the loop over and over and over again and tried to make a virtue of that fact. But we also explored lots of different ways of portraying the brand, different ways of creating that insulation, communicating the different variants, the different SKUs that would be part of the range. But ultimately, we ended up here. This was the winning concept from consumer research and from the evaluation that Loop, Nestlé, and Touch did, where we looked at, well, what's going to be fit for the Loop system? What's going to be the most robust? And actually, this three-piece stainless steel construction ended up working best for us. So we have this insulated lid. We have an inner core, which is single skin with no insulation. And we have this jacket that goes around the outside. And this jacket creates an air gap that provides the insulation. So a really simple, seemingly simple concept, but actually it has to work within quite a complex supply chain. And this simple piece of packaging has to work for each of those stakeholders that we spoke about before. So yes, it looks great to the consumer online, but Nestlé would receive the inner core and the insulated lid to fill, potentially on their existing lines in the future if it was something that to be rolled out. We can print a wash-off date code and batch code on here. So through the cleaning process, that can be erased, and it can be printed again. Because it's single skin at this point and doesn't have the insulation attached, it can be frozen from all sides, so it's still as efficient from that perspective. Then when it goes through the distribution chain and gets to the distribution center, the insulation jacket can be put on, and then it can go to the consumer. And they'll receive it in their tote with all the other Loop products that they may have bought. And of course, they'll have a great experience, and I'll tell you more about that in a second. But when they're finished with it, it gets picked up and returned back to Loop, where all the components are separated and cleaned. And because that inner component is designed to nest, it's efficient going back through the logistics chain back to Nestlé to be refilled again. So as you can imagine, there were lots of different iterations of that design. But when we got to design lock, we worked very closely with Tommy and his team, the chosen manufacturers, and we developed the final specification. We produced prototypes. We created the full 3D CAD package to hand over. And, well, this was the result, a pack that looks incredibly desirable when you see it online, and consumers were willing to part with their hard-earned money to pay that deposit for what looks like it's going to be a fantastic experience. It's nestable through the logistics chain, so it's really efficient going backwards and forwards and through the supply chain. And it's also freezable from all sides without that jacket attached to it. But we solved all those consumer challenges that they had with single-use packaging. Now on the inside, we have lovely smooth surfaces in a rigid container that makes it super easy to get all of the product out, elevating the experience so much higher than what we saw from single-use packaging. We don't get cold hands anymore when we hold this because we have this wonderful insulation on the exterior. So you can enjoy your Häagen-Dazs in bed now without fear of getting cold hands. We have a longer lasting texture because it melts only from the top and not from all the sides. So from first bite to last bite, you can still really enjoy the Häagen-Dazs product experience. And Clem touched on this before. You know, this is an expensive piece of packaging, and of course, deposit plays a key role. But it's designed to be an asset to the brand, not a cost of doing business day after day after day. It's designed to be used 100 times. And approximately, this pack is about the same as 75 single-use packs. So after 75 uses, it becomes a true asset to the brand and something they're not continuing to pay for. So some other features that were of a benefit here is, you have to remember there were 5 different variations of this at launch. But to keep inventory as simple as possible, we had a consistent graphic that was applied across the outside on the insulation. And this represented every single one of the flavors. But on the top, this is where the difference came. So there were 5 different lids that represented the different flavors. Each of them had a QR code on there that the consumer can scan with their phone, see their ingredients, and see any allergen information that they might want to know as well. And after launch within the US, there was some independent research done, and we had some great feedback from consumers. I particularly like when they say the star of the show is probably the reusable Haagen-Dazs ice cream container, or I thought the Haagen-Dazs ice cream container was a thing of beauty. That's obviously, as a designer, that's what we want to hear. But more from a sustainability point of view, what was really, really positive was we were hearing consumers say that, well, if I can see that Nestle and Haagen-Dazs are part of a system like this, when I saw them participating, my attitude changed towards them. If they are willing to change, then something can actually happen, which I think is a really positive message. So thank you so much. I thought there was one more slide, but thank you so much. Yeah, thank you very much. Tommy,
thank you, James.
I'll hand over to you to give us a wider perspective on reusable packaging.
Thank you, James. I forgot so many things went into that project until you went through it again. I think the devil is kind of in the details. So I'll give you a bit, I'll broaden it back up a bit on the brand point of view, or rather on the company point of view. Ever since the project, I think we've embarked into quite a bit of a journey for reuse and refill. I think it's important, I don't know if all of you know, but the vision really is that none of our packaging end up in landfill or litter. So circularity in that sense, especially when it comes to reuse systems, is it's perfect to answer that type of question, right? So that it doesn't really get to landfill or litter. You return it to us. Our commitments are, as you know, I mean, I'm not going to repeat them. Ellen MacArthur Foundation commitments are there. But when it comes to sustainability and circularity, we have it kind of divided into 5 pillars. And this is quite recent after our endeavors with Loop and with Touch. We look, I want to focus your attention on the second pillar, which is kind of new. The second pillar is really looking at reuse and looking as a company into these type of systems where we get all the waste back and reuse them and then try to scale them. I think today that is really the biggest question: where and how can these systems be scaled? And it has to. That's part of our currently our packaging strategy. I'm not going to go through the rest. These you can find on the website. I think it's not so relevant for this. So because of that, on the R&D end, we've poured in quite a bit. I think it's important to mention that these are resources across the 5 pillars. And I think you've heard about innovation partners that we have, or even the 1.7 billion that's been poured in. It goes to multiple projects, not just these projects, I feel, but nevertheless, the resource is in there. With the resource is the network. I think it's important to know that we understand, geographically speaking, the same system might not work in different countries. So the network, I think that's where we are a little bit more advantaged, where we can access to these different networks or these different local sites that we have as R&D to be able to support the whole platform of reuse and refill, right? So the test and learns that we do, we can spread it out across with different formulas to see if these will work or not. And that has been ongoing, although I will not share more details than that. The way we do a little bit our developments together with Loop and with Touch is very much divided into 3. One is we kind of discover a solution, then we develop the solution to fit with what we talked about, where the networks are and where the geographies are, what type of product. Haagen-Dazs is one product, but Nestle has quite a number of products with different range of consumer needs and consumer insights. So that development happens to fit with the product or with the market or with all these different points. And then locally, we have a team to help deploy. I think that's a little bit how we work. And when we worked on this project, I was in the develop front, just so you know. We have these capabilities. I'm not going to go through them. I think I'll leave the time now back to you, Yue, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well,
thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that really gave a broad overview about the whole loop concept. I learned a lot. I didn't know all the details so far. So I'm sure you have many, many questions. And we have another 20 minutes to really, well, grill these people here. You will, well, not often have the chance to have this expertise at one spot in public. So the floor is yours. I have some questions as well. I will start with one. I mean, why is this thing so small? I mean, it's developed by all these thin people, but I mean, it really looks smaller than I expected it to be.
Well, the volume inside is exactly the same of what you'll find in a 1-pint container of single-use packaging.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
It looks much smaller.
We can't change physics. It's true.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. So, do you have questions? I'm really curious what you think about. You can also, well, tell us that the whole thing would not work because, or that you have your doubts.
We'll go home.
No questions? Yeah. Ah, there is a question. So how can we do that from, do we have a, okay, perfect. Maybe you could briefly say who you are and then
Okay, hi, I'm Kathi. I'm also doing reusable packaging, but we do it for shipment. And my question is, was it hard for you to design something that is cool, but not like that cool people want to have it at home? Because we have this problem that our product is like slightly too cool because the people want to have it at home. So what did you do to change this?
it's not only cool, it stays cool even.
Yeah, and that's maybe the problem in this case.
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of things. You're absolutely right. We have to make it desirable so that consumers actually want to purchase it in the first place. But I think to Clem's point earlier, getting the deposit right, making consumers encouraged to return it back so that, well, it stays in the system. I think that's key.
And
maybe just to build on this, like you have this new collector effect, right? That we call, so that's very cool packaging. Everyone has so much space in their cupboards available, right? So you might have at the beginning, from lack of education and lack of understanding, why are you holding up onto something? It's because you think it's unique and you actually can't have it again, right? So that's why you keep it. If actually everywhere you're shopping, you can have another one, then the interest of collecting it disappear, right? Just like today, you're not keeping all the package that you have, right? So I think there is a little bit of newness effect, which we are solving via the deposit and the right education. And then there is the scale effect, which is the moment you don't have to hang tight on something because there is a scarcity on availability, then it becomes something that you willingly put back into the system.
Yeah, and I think on the design side, you have to look at it like a product value encompassing. The design's not going to solve for everything, whether it looks beautiful or what, but your whole... When a consumer buys a product, there is a value that it puts on the product. I'll give you an example, like Haagen-Dazs as an ice cream, it's not just the pack, it's also the ice cream. And it's not an ice cream that you can just make at home without the recipe. So it's a whole package, and I think when you design, we need to keep in mind that it's a whole package. And then you will solve that problem for sure.
Well, and if I bring it to my local ice manufacturer and let it refill, then at least the brand stays with the consumer. So there's something, something good in it.
That's another piece with this. So this was launched in 30 Haagen-Dazs stores as a refill device as well. So consumers could pay a premium first time, but then get a discount on refills in the future. So it did more than just work for Loop. It worked for the wider Haagen-Dazs brand channels too.
So I'm wondering, I mean, if I have to bring all these containers back, so I bring my bottles back to the Rewe or the EDEKA, I bring this back to your partner, I don't know who it'll be in Germany, but I have to carry all the things all the time. So do you have experience from the Tesco and Carrefour pilots that how people deal with this?
No, it's a great question. So first, the objective of Loop is to enable a centralized point of return, right? So it's not about sending your beverage here and the Haagen-Dazs here. So in France, for example, where we're working with both beverage, such as sodas and water, as well as not Haagen-Dazs in that example, but other products on personal care and food, you bring back everything into one point, and you don't even have to sort them, right? So we're working, you can see here the Tesco bag is the example. You put everything into a bag. The bag has a QR code. You scan that QR code, and you put everything, you deposit it. So there is as less of a hassle as possible. If you're looking at the return action objectively, today, consumer return in Germany at rate which are above 95%, and in our own initiatives at rate which are getting close to this, but we are a bit younger. Glass bottles, which are bulky, breakable, and heavy. I would argue the toughest item to return if you're a single person or a household. So there is no reason you don't return something that's like this, that's much smaller, takes less space, and that you wouldn't break. So it's a matter of education, it's a matter of right messaging on the pack, it's a matter of making sure we also leave time to time, right? On beverage, the rates we're seeing stay very, very high, although we haven't spoken about return your glass for probably a generation. And it still stands. So my message to our brand partners is, it's a great ROI. You educate them, and 2 generations after, consumers are still remembering your education. So it's an investment worth putting.
Thank you, Clem. More questions from the audience. There's one here. I mean, you must have questions. It disrupts our whole industry. If this becomes in a large scale, all of the single-use packages will not disappear, but the volume will get smaller. So it's really a redesigned thinking. Who are you?
Hi, I'm Mauro. It was a very nice presentation. And my question is, there must be a long cycle for the product because people don't usually buy ice cream daily. So how long do you think it will take for you to validate that the packing will last for 75 to 100 cycles? Like, will it be 2 or 3 years, or?
Well, certainly from a specification of the materials, in this case we use stainless steel, which is a pretty tough material. And in fact, if you go to pretty much any food manufacturer, what are those machines made of? They're made of stainless steel. So we picked a material that we were pretty sure is going to be robust. And we've had experience designing for the beer industry, which probably has one of the longest histories in reusable packaging. So we took a lot of those principles from that space there and put that into this packaging. So for example, very precise touch points, geometry that is very robust through the supply chain, and the way we put it together, something that was designed to last, that we can build on from our experience as a design agency. That was our approach, and it's worked.
Does it answer the question?
Yeah, no, but I mean the cycle time it's important to estimate how much capex you will have to invest, or how much packaging you'll have in the market. Yeah. But also to validate that you don't have to make improvements to the packing, right? So that's why my question was on time.
Yeah, so I mean, for this test, this was for the US only for a certain period of time. So I think 20,000 units were produced based on the calculations that Nestlé, Loop had done. The test was successful. We got the cycle time, the volume in the market correct.
Yeah, well, there are two things, right? Technically speaking, you have to simulate the 75 times. Throw it around, fill it with ice cream, kick it. These things, you have to see what type of damage will happen to the existing design so you can fix it. Washing, we do 75 cycles, we do 100 cycles. However, what we can't will never get to know unless we have a long period of time is handling. Right? Supply chain handling is something that will evolve as we go along with reuse to improve itself. Right? With stainless steel, you can say that it will last longer because of the material and what James has just mentioned. With glass and the existing type of supply chain, it might last less, right? So the decision was to go high, to go for a more durable type of material. But do we want, in terms of validation, that's going to take a while. And I think it will take even longer than what we think because supply chain will change. No?
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. More questions from the audience? There's one here. Thank you. Right over there. Oh.
Yeah. Sorry, I was on the line for the questions. I'm here.
Okay. Thank
Hello.
you. Who are you? Sorry.
Yes. I am Monica Gross, Ecosystem Engagement Manager for Food and Beverage Industry at Avery Dennison. And first of all, really thank you very much for your interventions, unique information opportunity today. So I have actually many questions in behalf of the company that I represent. But I will have to for you today. I would love to connect with you afterwards. So the first one, and probably I missed it in the beginning because this fair is so exciting that to come in, it was an incredible traffic jam. So I missed the beginning. I have two questions. The first one is, where do you see major opportunities of growth? I mean, what do you need to enable more reuse and refill? That's the first one. And the second one will be more in relationship with the part of delighting consumers. We are all consumers and we love to touch and feel, right? I see everything is around direct printing technology because of the washing, because of the resistance and so on. On the other hand, being Avery Dennison, one of the objectives is to enable circularity, refill, reuse. We have also solutions, adhesives, coatings, and so on. Do you see it also? What about labels that will attract, they will initiate the visual to touch the product, but then you need to have the label to be durable on time. Is it something that you will consider in design as well?
Well,
Okay.
thank you. Two questions.
Maybe
Two answers.
I'll start to give my perspective on the two questions. So on the first question is, where are the biggest opportunity of growth? From my point of view is, and I think all of us talked about supply chain, which is a very broad work to talk about how do you industrialize that process. What we have done is across many different markets with many different consumers and many different back-end operation, proven a system at a small scale. Consumers are here, they're purchasing, they're returning, and there is almost no glitch in the system when it gets to deposit reimbursement. We've proven the cleaning standards. So what you need now is, as an industry, so not as one partner, not as one person, lean in to bring it to the next level. And the next level is going to be more product, more stores, more consumers, right? Like you need to move to a phase of industrialization from a proven pilot. It might sound easy, it's actually very challenging in very efficient supply chain that in 60 years have optimized single use to the maximum. And if you add on top of this the supply chain constraints we've known in the market in the last 3 years between COVID disruption and now raw material shortage and energy crisis, I mean, it's not an easy recipe. But on our side, that's what needs to happen, is evolving this pilot supply chain into the next phase of industrialization, bring efficiency through volume. On your second question of the role of labels specifically and others, I think we are just scratching the surface with thinking durable packaging at a design phase. And we started, like any project, concentrating on the main part of the container, so what has the biggest impact to date, which is making sure the body moves from a carton into a metal container. But as you go through the cleaning process, the validation, also thinking about automation, next phase of industrialization, you realize that the body of the package is a very important and great start, but it's not everything. Labels plays a role, adhesives plays a role, substrates, lids, all type of component on the packaging, ink. Like, are you doing removable, washable labels? Are you doing permanent ink? All of this will have an impact, which, if you project on a business model to scale, will have a massive impact. So we have to move to the devil is in the details. We were saying, looking at every single component of the pack and making sure we make the right choice for the business objective.
Well, thank you, Clem. Does it answer your question?
Well said, well said. But
thank you.
We will connect afterwards. Yeah?
It's good news, not only for Avery Dennison and this part of the industry, but for all of us. I mean, there is a lot to do. There's a lot to develop. There's a lot of well, little details to be invented, and so that's also good news for us, James, huh?
No,
as designers. So we have good work for the next years.
It keeps it interesting.
One question in between from me: when can we expect to have Loop in Germany or in Switzerland, where you come from?
Yeah, again, it's a good question. So what we need to be able to have an offer in the market is actually not really starting from the back-end logistics. I mean, we will work on the back-end logistics, but what we need first is a place to distribute and products to be distributed. So the way we work and we approach the initiative is always working in partnership with distributors. So Carrefour is a French example, Kroger in the US, Eon in Japan, and working with brand manufacturers that have a durable package or have the intent to develop a durable package, and there the project can start.
Thank you. So I'm really waiting for it. So if any one of you runs an EDEKA market or have a corner shop somewhere, then you should talk to Clem. No, just kidding. I'm sure it won't take too long until one of the big players are jumping on the project. More questions from the audience. I know that there was somebody in the middle.
Hi, my name is Alp. It's from Mondi Corrugated Solution. Uwe, I think we already met here. We had a beautiful workshop together with my colleague also, Janina. First, congratulations for this beautiful product and idea, and thank you for your presentation. So I have also two questions. The first one, so this is 3 pieces metal packaging. So why not 2 pieces? So because, yeah, so this double the material usage, and of course this increase dramatically the cost of the packaging. And my second question is also regarding marketing. So I'm also designer, but at the end, so we need to think about, of course, the cost. And how you consider or how you comment the influence of this packaging to the product price, so the primary product price. So, thank you.
Okay, I'll try and answer, I guess, in one answer. if you remember, I talked about the product value as a whole to the consumer. If we try and break it down a little bit, and I'm going a bit into the details now, where you have the product, the pack, and the experience. All these need to come together and with manufacturing in order to work as one value proposition or one product value. And that's actually one of the reasons why we separated to have two parts, an internal and an external. The internal and external part has, as James has mentioned, an experiential value for the consumer when it comes to the cold hands and also the melting. So you see there is an experiential value to that, and there's also a manufacturing requirement that I cannot talk about, but there's also a manufacturing requirement that we have it in a split format. So that hopefully answers that question. Now on the marketing end, or more on the product value end, we need to look at a lot of angles, but what I can tell you at least is we no longer look instantaneous at the value model. We look more long-term at the value model and what it could become. And then you price your product value accordingly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, good. Yeah. Whereas what we used to do on single use, it goes out, it never comes back. Right? Here, it's going to come back, and it will come back for a few years, and that's kind of the idea. So your pricing value needs to be here rather than here.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question answered.
Yeah,
very good.
Exactly. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one at the back.
There it is.
I've got a minute.
Does it work?
Hello? Oh, no. Hi, my name is Verena. Thank you for introducing this great idea to the world. I'm very much looking forward to seeing you on the German market. And my question is, have you thought about fake containers and how are you going to ensure that people are only returning original loop containers and not fake containers?
So that's a great question, and that's a problem that might arise the day you are at a broader scale. So transparently, we don't have that issue. We don't have that issue today. Obviously, that's something that all of us, not just on the back end, which is how would we recognize it, but also from a brand side, which owns the package, so no one wants to receive a fake package, are thinking about. You will have technical solution, right? So today we were talking, I think James was showing, you have the possibility to put QR codes on the product, so that could be one solution. We're talking also RFID traceability type of solution. I'm personally not a packaging designer or a packaging engineer, so I probably won't have the right answer for you, but that's something that is in the back of the mind of the system that we have on the roadmap when we'll have to think about it.
Well, thank you very much. We are right on time. It's 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, so that's it from our side. You're welcome to speak to us after this presentation. Thank you very much for joining us, Clem from Switzerland, James from London, and Tommy also from Switzerland, from Vivi. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for listening. And have a good day on the trade show.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.